Imagine a massive empire, right? Completely resting on the unbreakable bond between two immense forces. Now, imagine a shadow creeping in. Just a single whispered lie designed to literally tear the whole thing apart from the inside out. Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a story from the ancient Indian Panchatantra, and honestly, it reads way less like a traditional fable and a lot more like a high-stakes psychological thriller. We're talking a masterclass in betrayal, manipulation, and the absolutely dark arts of statecraft. Okay, let's dive into this. So, the source material centers around this concept called Mitra Bhedam. If you literally translate it from the ancient texts, it means the breaking of friendships. But, it's so much more than just a falling out. It's the strategic, highly calculated, and honestly pretty sinister art of driving a wedge between strong allies. See, the Panchatantra wasn't just some collection of cute bedtime stories for kids. No way. It was a hardcore manual of political science and statecraft, meant to teach young princes the harsh realities of the world. Mitra Bhedam shows us exactly how manipulators operate, taking the closest of friends and turning them into bitter enemies, all to serve their own hidden agendas. To really get how this works, we have to look at the targets of this psychological warfare, and this brilliantly illustrates the dynamic. On one side, we have Pingalaka the lion. He's the apex predator, the absolute king of the forest. He has raw, majestic power, but with that heavy crown comes a deep underlying paranoia. Then, on the other side, we have Sanjivaka the ox. He was actually abandoned in the forest with a broken leg, but he healed up and became this massive force of gentle, grounded strength. So despite being natural enemies, we're talking predator and prey here, they form this incredibly unshakable, beautiful alliance based on mutual respect. The king gets a wise, honest confidant, and the ox gets royal protection. It is literally the perfect partnership. Well, until someone gets intensely jealous, of course. Enter our antagonist, Damanaka the jackal. To understand the absolute destruction that's about to unfold, we really have to look at his past. You see, Damanaka used to hold the coveted position of the king's primary minister. He had the ear of the most powerful animal in the jungle. But when Sanjivaka the ox showed up and proved his incredible value and honest wisdom, the king naturally elevated the ox, totally pushing the jackal aside. Stripped of his status and just blinded by this bitter, venomous envy, Damanaka doesn't just accept his demotion. Oh no, he starts scheming. He knows for sure he can't beat the lion or the ox in a physical fight, so he has to destroy them using the only weapon he has left, his mind. Just listen to how Damanaka rationalizes his own malice in the text. He says, "Man proposes, God disposes. The minister position I desired went to Sanjivaka. My dice did not roll as I wished." You can practically hear the resentment dripping from those words, right? In his mind, he hasn't just lost a job, he's been robbed. And this deep-seated sense of injustice, that's the spark that ignites his entire campaign of psychological warfare. He's not going to use fangs or claws to win back his spot. He is going to use something far, far more dangerous. He decides to weaponize his words. Now, the absolute genius of the Panchatantra is how it layers its narrative. Damanaka doesn't just stroll up to the lion and say, "Hey, the ox is bad." That would be way too obvious, and the king is way too smart for that. Instead, Damanaka uses fables. He uses stories within stories to slowly, almost imperceptibly, drip poison into the minds of both Pingalaka the lion and Sanjivaka the ox. He's using these tales as metaphors to plant seeds of doubt, fear, and deep paranoia. Let's look at exactly what kind of stories he's whispering in the dark. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the sheer visceral imagery Damanaka uses. He tells the story of two massive, furious rams engaged in this brutal, bloody battle. A greedy jackal, who's tempted by the blood pooling on the ground, steps right between them at the exact moment of impact. The result? The jackal is instantly crushed to death by their sheer force. Damanaka uses this incredibly violent image to subtly warn his listener about the mortal danger of being caught in the middle of massive, conflicting forces. He's laying the groundwork, making his targets feel like they're suddenly standing on the edge of a very deadly battlefield. And then he twists the knife even further with the tale of the bedbug and the flea. So Mandavisarpi is this gentle flea who lives in a king's bed, carefully taking just enough blood to survive without ever waking him up. But then this aggressive, loud-mouthed bedbug named Dindimum arrives and practically begs to join. Against her better judgment, the flea allows it, while the bedbug, having zero subtlety, bites the king way too hard. The king wakes up in an absolute fury, the bedbug easily scurries away into a crack in the bed, and the guards end up killing the innocent loyal flea. Dalmanaka weaponizes this exact fable to plant a very specific seed of paranoia. He is essentially telling the Lion King, hey, trusting the wrong outsider, say a certain ox, will ultimately get you killed. He just keeps up this psychological assault with the story of a devoted ascetic named Devasharma. This guy was robbed totally blind by his seemingly perfect disciple, Ashadabuthi. This disciple publicly preached stuff like, even a blade of grass belonging to others is like a snake, all while secretly plotting to steal his master's entire life savings. Dalmanaka is showing the king that the absolute most dangerous enemies are the ones wearing the mask of ultimate loyalty. He's deliberately forcing the king to look at Sanjivaka the ox and wonder, wait, is his gentle nature just an act? So here we have Dalmanaka's exact methodology mapped out. And honestly, you might actually recognize some of these toxic tactics from modern workplace politics. Step 1, isolate the targets. He speaks to the lion privately, then he goes and speaks to the ox privately, creating this totally closed echo chamber of whispers. Step 2, frame natural strength as a direct threat. He tells the lion that the ox's massive size and sharp horns are literal weapons pointed right at the throne. Then he turns around and tells the ox that the lion's predatory nature means he's really just fattening the ox up for a future meal. And step 3, he just waits. He steps back and lets their own survival instincts, their own deep-seated fear completely override their logic and the entire history of their friendship. Which brings us to a seriously terrifying crossroads in our source text. Will the king, a leader renowned for his royal wisdom and might, actually see through the lies of a jealous, demoted jackal? Or is the poison of paranoia just too strong? It's a thriller-style tension that resonates so deeply even today. I mean, think about it. How often do powerful leaders fall victim to the sycophants and schemers just whispering in their ears? So the crucial point is that the tragedy ultimately hinges on how Sanjivaka, the ox, finally perceives his own situation. The text uses this absolutely brilliant elemental metaphor to describe it. Dalmanaka completely convinces Sanjivaka that some alliances naturally amplify power, right? Like fire and wind. When they combine, they become this unstoppable, terrifyingly destructive force. But other alliances are fundamentally incompatible. If iron tries to befriend water, the weak iron is just beaten on an anvil and then eventually drowned and rusted away by the water. Sanjivaka comes to the tragic realization that by allying with an apex predator, he is the iron. He actually starts to believe the lion has only kept him around to eventually consume him. The trust is just completely broken. And so, the inevitable happens, the tragic clash. Driven completely mad by the jackal's fables, the lion firmly believes the ox is about to stage a violent coup. Meanwhile, the ox, absolutely terrified for his life, believes the lion is about to strike him down. When they finally meet face to face, instead of talking it out, they just react to these phantom threats planted in their minds. The two former best friends engage in a brutal, violent battle to the death, destroying each other and completely shattering the peace of the entire forest. Dalmanaka's manipulation, a complete 100% success. The architect of their downfall just watches from the shadows as the mighty fall. The source material leaves us with this incredibly profound piece of ancient wisdom. Bad company is easily found and quickly parts. Good friendship is hard to find. But a bad friend is like the morning shadow, starting great but diminishing over time. Conversely, a true friend is like the evening shadow, starting out small but growing much larger and far more protective as the day goes on. Pingalaka and Sanjivaka literally had that rare evening shadow friendship, but they allowed the toxic, diminishing morning shadow presence of Dalmanaka to eclipse it completely. Which leaves us with a rather haunting, provocative question to ponder as we wrap up this explainer. Look at the friendships, the professional alliances, and the partnerships in your own life right now. How easily do we allow the whispers of a jealous third party, whether that's workplace gossip, societal paranoia, or just a really bad actor, to totally poison our own strongest alliances? It's a hard lesson from centuries ago, but man, it still rings uncomfortably true today. So keep your friends close, but perhaps more importantly, actively protect the trust you share with them from the jackals waiting in the wings.